Welcome to Ego Netcast. I am Martin Lindeskog. The future is here and now. I wrote a post in August last year with this title, talking about my podcast workflow, and plans for the future. This is an episode of my pivoting in a way and the future plans of my podcasting. Time flies. It's about 6 months since my latest episode, and it's 6 months until the next time it's the book fair in Gothenburg in Sweden. I'm celebrating my name day with informing you about my upcoming birthday in May. This solo episode is a call for help as I'm entering a new career phase as a self-published author in the near future. So the title will be A Call for Help and Call to Action. I have been involved in several podcasts during the years, and right now I'm involved in about 5-6 different podcasts. This one, Ego Netcast, with solo episodes and interviews. And I have something called Menu Pod in Swedish, interviewing food trucks owners and street food players. I am co-host at Produktivitet, how to be productive and drinking tea at the same time, with Johan Gustafsson. And Johan Gustafsson and Undesigned have a podcast together with Johan Gudmundsson called Pen Meeting Paper in Swedish. Penna möter papper. And I will include an interview we did in English there. I'm also a producer and a co-host of a prepper show called Home Preparedness with Annette Staff and Niklas Larsson. I'm also having a client helping her with a podcast, Nita Silverspjut Management Studio podcast. And also I'm in talks with potential new clients and business partners, regarding podcasting. More of this shortly. So, I've written down the show notes, and it's this about the workflow and how to get this. And it's so many things to say now, but have in one thing: fermentating, as you do in kimchi, or percolating if you're drinking coffee. So it's lots of things bubbling, and lots have been on my mind here lately. And half a year ago I had a great follow-up conversation with Maria Dolores on September 30th. And that's the International Podcast Day that I will celebrate this year also. So shout out to the folks for arranging this event all over the world, International Podcast Day. And Maria, we have recorded a series based on her book, 7 Principles of Individual Rights and Individual Responsibilities, and also planning of a future podcast show. So stay tuned. So this time the Gothenburg Book Fair will be on September 27th to 30th. And then my first forthcoming book on black tea will be published. It will be illustrated by fine artist and cartoonist John Cox. I recently was at BNI meeting as a stand-in for a member, Birgit, that has a cleaning firm. And then I listened, and I will include a photo here on Instagram photo that I took of 4 business cards. It was Birgit's cleaning firm. It was a person from a lawyer firm, Foyen. And she had a great talk on LinkedIn. And my introspection there was, I'm not an expert on LinkedIn. I understand the fundamental ideas about it, and I know the history, and I have a gut feeling about their future plans. And this is a journey that I will develop my own LinkedIn profile. Again, more of that later on. And the BNI idea, Business Network International, is referral marketing. So know, like, and trust, and then refer, doing business with business partners. There, it was the person that will help me lay out with the book, have done a great job, and understand my idea about the book, T-Book Sketches, Charlotte Stengavel of Creative Support. She was there at the meeting. She is a member there. And then also she introduced me to Sandra Aviani. She has a passion for underwear and lingerie. And we had great meetings here talking about podcasting. And also she learned and teach me and informed me about the cash flow game by Robert Kiyosaki. And we also had same interest in precious metals, silver and gold, and really understood each other. And so we are on the same wavelength there. So the cultivating, and that's the title that my webmaker came up with, Kai Lundén of tbooksketches.com, how to cultivation and the process of a book. So I also want to do a shout out to Jim Johnson of J Tunes Production. He's creating the jingles for my podcast here. And he is, with Kai Lundén's help, in the making of setting up a new site. So I will link to that when it's ready. And this is one part that during my years interesting in this field, started in 2006 with podcasting, 2002 in blogging, but I have now an overall picture of it with the workflow. Although I'm struggling with it myself, I have the big picture. I see the parallels step by step, and I could, as Sandra was saying, inspires other to start their own podcast and give arguments for doing that. So, coming back to a podcasting workflow, as it is now, I have to do it myself, most of the parts here. When I have an interview, I'm using a service called X.ie for artificial intelligence, and a so-called virtual assistant robot is booking the guests by communicating via email. Other than that, I'm doing it all myself from right now, recording on BossJock app. I see on their site that something is going on there. They are planning for the future, so I look forward to the new developed app there. I like it very much. So with my clients, when Inita Silvers Beauty is interviewing guests, we are using IK Multimedia, lavalier mics, and then using this app, Bossok app. I'm using it right now, and also through this Prepper podcast show. When I'm doing the interview and long distance conversation, I use Ringer app. And as you know, I have interviewed the CEO and founder of Ringer, Tim Sinclair, and they have developed this podcast app during the years. Right now, that we're using with the Pen Meet Paper podcast when we are 3 people on the show. So you could have one that initiate the recording, and then you have 2 guests. You could have up to 4 guests. You could also have a green room, so you could talk before the podcasting is starting. So that's great. When you have a guest, you could talk about technical details and warming up and so on. And talking about show notes, and then I'd also do that I will do now through Auphonic, like post-production. I have been struggling and learning curve there to learn how to edit. I want to have a natural work flow and raw style in a way. It should sound in a good way, but don't want to cut everything. So if it sounds like now, pause, whatever, and some ticks that you could have, it could be included as long as it doesn't disturb the listener. And I'm always interested in constructive feedback. More of that later on, how you could support and give me feedback. So, in the show notes, I've become inspired here by Elsie Escobar of The Feed, the official podcast for Libsyn, Liberated Syndication. That's my web podcast host for the sound files. So, and my motto, my slogan is to spread better ideas regarding new media, business philosophy, and the good life. So this is like the new media section. The good life, including tea, will come at the end, and also a bit of philosophy that I want to talk about in the upcoming newsletter. So I've been thinking about that, what's different for me compared to other podcasters. So I want people to have food for thought, and this podcast is for thinking individuals, to reflect, to do introspection, to take a moment to think about fundamental ideas. I'm subscribed and involved in some of the Facebook groups regarding podcasting, and there it was a service called Spext, spext.co, and I got to test it out there. So you could have a plugin in a Chrome browser. I'm using Safari now, so I will come back with that later on. And there you could do editing. Right now I'm using Ferrite that I've done, and also Hindenburg. But this Spext will fit my personality, and it will be easier for me, but still it will be good end result. So I'm interested to test that out. What more to say? As I said in the beginning, I'm very involved in different podcasts here. So one episode we did with Pen Meets Paper, it was with Kate Dimitrieva of BNU Pen. So I'll include that in the show notes. And it was very interesting as a newbie in fountain pens, inks, whatnot, and talking with Johan that have been engaged and been studying this, you could say, and practicing and handwriting and collecting pens for some time, and also talking with a company that is doing fountain pens in a new way. That was great. And then to have this conversation, different places, myself outside Gothenburg, Johan in Gothenburg, Johan Gudmundsson in northern region of Sweden, and then Kate of Benny Pen in Russia. And talking about Russia, we'll talk about some things later on here also. So I will take a sip here now of a beverage, but I also will talk about at the end. With this podcast that have been, as I said, percolating for a long time, lots of new ideas coming up and things that I want to say. And to have a moment here, to take time. I've been thinking of this lately now for a few days, writing show notes, writing things to say, and then new things pops up. And I had that discussion with my mastermind group, facilitated by Fizzle.co, with 3 people in Australia. And we have a session, and then I was in the hot seat now, talking about focus now on the book, to get that done and finished the damn, you could say, book. And I have a blog post there that I'll link to. And I want to thank my supporters, backers, crowdfunding campaign mainly for the illustrations, and especially for Mark, Mimosa, and Tom in the mastermind group here, for support and constructive feedback and pushing me along here. And we have great exchange of ideas, tips and tricks, talking about highs and lows during a week, our commitments, our progress, etc. Management studio, Nita Silverspjut. She has recently been in California. So I will link to the English part there on her site, Empower California. And she's interviewing thought leaders, businessmen, managers, etc., and has a holistic approach of 360 degrees leadership style. And it's very enjoyable to see the journey and her development as a podcaster now, and see the reactions from the guests and from the listeners, potential guests, and listeners and people who are getting interested in this, and also see results on the website, traffic, spreading the good word, etc. And she will join me at the meetup here, Gothenburg podcasting meetup, got pod radio, as we say in Swedish. It's a Swedish word for podcast, pod radio. So, meta podcasting, and that you could say with the meetup. I got inquiries why isn't any meetings happening in Gothenburg, and we have had that in the past. And Lena Gothenburg of Shipping Podcast did a great thing there, asking lots of questions before she was starting her own podcast, Shipping Podcast. So we had almost a year there, I think, about that. Every month we met and talked about different things every time, and has had a topic about the podcasting ideas, workflow, technical things, what to do with guests, all these things, all the process. And I will come back to shout out there. But I learned during time here that could be a guide for you. It was very interesting to have these meetups. And now I'm starting it again and had one here recently, and soon in April I will have a new one. And I'm enjoying this very much. Talking about meta podcasting, I will set up a new podcast in Swedish called Poddradio. And I'm thinking of testing Anchor podcasting tool, an app. And there I'll go through a course by Eileen Smith on Anchor. So I will include that in show notes, so check it out. A course in Anchor, how to use Anchor by Eileen Smith. Eileen on Twitter. And also shout out regarding book writing. I participate in and bought a course by Chris Brogan that is starting a new podcast here. And I like, by the way, his new logotype for podcasting, the artwork there. Could see similarities, similar things and pattern in a way, in a funny, quirky way, like John Cox illustrations. Write your book already ready. And I started this course a couple of years ago. And I had this idea for a book several years ago. So again, it's time to finish the book. Because with that, it will open new opportunities in my life. Again, shout out to the Fizzle podcast show, and also the new podcast show by Steph Crowder, Courage and Clarity. And I will include some post and podcast episodes there on not how to quit, to keep going, and a podcast episode on podcasting, and also on how to set up a mastermind group. And also an interview with Minimal Baker, and that I could relate to that, my plans for my site, T-Book Sketches, what will come in the future. So another sip here of a beverage, but it is an alternative to tea, you could say. It's very popular in South America. Could you guess the name of a beverage? It will come. And Sean Smith, shout out to you, Sean, for being so supportive when it's regarding mobile podcasting. You're pro there. And also for including myself, yours truly, in the ringer instructions and giving my interview as a good example of how to use ringer that I had with Tim Sinclair of Ringer. You're an inspiration regarding how to become a digital nomad and how to use podcasting during your travels and the missions that you're doing. Addy Sosido, thanks for being a guest recently on my show. And I'm testing a new format there, a shorter time frame, and this focus on the word ego search, for example. And I will play around with this in the future for the interviews, because I'm deciding now to pick my guests and doing it in my way. I've enjoyed using the services for getting guests and so on, but in a way you could be on another person's agenda instead of your own podcast. It's again focused to the listeners, but it's my show. And as I said, every person has a book inside themselves, and probably a podcast also. And then it could be good to think, to get material, food for thought, and read a book, or how to start a podcast, how to develop a podcast, etc. And Eddie has done that. The podcast planner that I bought. It's a great companion. Alexander Lauren, the podcaster's coach. He has been great in coaching me, and he's recently written a book about podcasting and also started a mastermind group. And he gave me to see the light there regarding the focus on my T-book. And that's why I have been, in a way, having a pause of my own podcast, this Ego Netcast, focusing on T-book and also being involved in other podcasts as a co-host and helping clients to start their own podcast and keeping along there. And I will do a video there with the testimonial, Alexander. And also I have to do another guest appearance on Vin Charles' new show. So I will talk to you, your assistant there, Vin, about that. And I appreciate last time I attended your show. It was great. And keep up the good work. And you're an inspiration there also with your books. And we will talk soon about that. And then, about 2 years ago, I won an iPad from Commit Action, Peter Shallard, the entrepreneurial shrink, you could say. And Brian Armentrout, he gave nice thumbs up on the Facebook group. And I did a Twitter unboxing video, and I will do some kind of testimonial there also. But that's also what I've been thinking about. I like to talk audio. Video I want to play around with. But it could be this, I say, obstacle or getting started. But Chris Brogan and others say, just do it. Start with it. So I have to find my format. Maybe it will be Instagram stories. Maybe it will be Twitter Live or Facebook Live or some testing out others and do it on a somewhat regular basis. Maybe it could be a complement to my newsletter also. What do you think? And what do you want to see in audio visual? Like what do you want to see in a video? Maybe it could be tea tasting, some tips and tricks, testing, podcasting equipment, reflections, thought of a day. I have to think about that and let it sink in. Maybe some daily or weekly writing thing with my new interest here in handwriting and fountain pens and so on. I will see. Maybe a doodle now and then and record it. And I will talk about the upcoming birthday and also for the spring here in the summer, plans to travel. And Karin Hög have been very nice yesterday and invited me as being a co-host for an episode of her podcast Solopreneur Cast. And we have been talking that for a long time here. So I hope to visit Copenhagen and Denmark. And I have some other things I want to do there and visit. So that's a goal to do. And she has a great studio there, so it will be nice to see that. And now over to call to action. And as I said, it's almost half an hour and I talk pretty slowly. You could speed up my voice by using Overcast, and you could say to tell me how much speed you will have me. Could you listen to me without sounding like a chipmunk at speed 2? I don't know. Test it out. Cheers. So, call to action. Call for help. I have several, as I said, costs related to podcasting. So that will be included, and I will want to keep doing this. It's a hobby in a way, but it's led to other things like podcasting talks at conferences, new connections, clients that have been interesting because I have this power to inspire people starting their own podcast, and I know how they should do it. Although with my own show, I've been struggling, but I'm not giving up. And it have pivoting, evolved, loop, you could say, doing loops and one step ahead, sometimes 2 steps back, but I'll keep going at it. So if you want to support this show and other activities regarding podcasting and social media activities, you could go to egonetcast.com/support. And there you could, for example, send a donation by cryptocurrency called Dash. I'm for the blockchain technology, and I will investigate it more and also giving some tips about that and my, you could say, philosophical take on it and how that could be a challenge to the fiat economy. And I have an alternative there and thoughts about, as I said, that I talked with Sandra with precious metals and real money like gold and silver. It would be interesting if the cryptocurrency and blockchain technology could be linked together with gold and silver. I've studied gold money for some time, and also when I was studying at Southern New Hampshire University, I've been in contact with the founder there of gold money. So it's interesting to follow this development of free thoughts, free minds, and free markets. Also, you could support my book here now, because I've seen it's covering the illustrations, but when I'm getting closer and closer to the publishing date, I see other things popping up that could be costly. So, and I will keep it up for some time, and we'll see for the next book, because it will be a series. It will be 8 books of tea, depending on the process of the tea. So I will write short stories and books with fine illustrations by John Cox there for 8 books. So you could go to the crowdfunding page on Go Get Funding, and it's a link on the Tea Book Sketches book there, tbooksketches.com. And I will also include this thank you note to my backers, the blog post about that. As I said, in a couple of months it's my birthday, and it's a so-called big number. And I including Instagram photo there with a Big Mac. They are Big Mac, McDonald's Big Mac hamburger is celebrating 50 years. And I got the direct mail marketing card. So I will get the free Big Mac and company, so that I will enjoy around my birthday here in May. And if you want to support me, send me a donation or send me some money so I could buy myself some birthday gifts, you're more welcome to go to paypal.me/Lindeskog. And I also started a new thing called Money Box, but it's a feature by PayPal. I will include a link in TechCrunch about this. So it's for tea travels, for podcasting meetups, for philosophical journaling. So it's called journeying. So travels, for example, as I said, to Copenhagen. As an Anglophile and tea lover, enthusiast, and amateur, London could be a place to visit around my birthday or after my birthday during this year. And also, I said once I want to visit the birthplace of a Western civilization, as I see it, Athens in Greece. And I want to stand there and see and feel the foundation there and the ground where Aristotle had been walking around, talking with his students. So, and also I have another place in that area that I'm very interested to visit, that have come up pretty recently, and more about this in the future. And you probably could guess that later on when I have in mind to have a guest there of a think tank later on, and to want to explore their activities in that area and see if it's a way to spread better ideas in an area that maybe you don't think about in general. So now it will be, like you'd say, a commercial break to joke. So now I will press here the box of sound that I bought, so on Boss Jock. So listen to this.
We'll be right back following these commercials.
So this commercial is by sponsor message, you could say. A word by sponsor for Audible trial. And they say you could do it in your way, and I have a bit of script here, like mid-roll placement. And I'm reading here. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/ego-netcast and choose from over 180,000 audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Easy peasy. Go to audibletrial.com/ego-netcast. Another time here to remember, and you will find that also on egonetcast.com/support. audibletrial.com/ego-netcast. Get started today. I have right now free credits, so I'm happy to get tips on what to read or listen to. You could say both. Audible is owned by Amazon, and I like to read physical hardcovers and ebooks, but also listening, because then you could do it during your walks, when you're doing other things like that. And that could be one of the things, that you have a great selection and you could listen to it on your spare time, and then you have time to do that. So, and they have recently started a service called almost like podcasting. It would be interesting if you have tested it out and see what's your take on it, and if you have found any favorite there. And now I will say here taken from my free credits, what I have on my wish list. If you have any tips there. The Book of Tea. When I used a new service called Podcast Box, I think it's called. I will check it. I searched on the term tea, and then I found talking about green tea with a guy in Colombia interviewing tea experts, and he had written there a book, a guest there on his show. So the Book of Tea, so by Ken Cohen. And I wrote a blog post there on T-Book Sketches about meetups, and he responded very nicely on Twitter. I'm also thinking of, because that have been stressful times here, about meditation, and then for a fidgety skeptics by Dan Harris. Have you listened to that or read that book? Another one is to get this thing in place, in harmony. Your skills, career, what you're good at, your passions, the vocation, etc. And when everything is in line, or what we describe as circles, when you reach Ikigai. Where I have two books there. The Little Book of Ikigai by Ken Moji, and or only Ikigai, the Japanese secret of loving and happy life. So, and then I got a book tip by my co-host of Productivity, Remote, because that I will talk here about job opportunities and so on. I could do tasks and job things and projects on a remote basis. So I will read that by Jason Fried, but the founder there, David Heinen Meyer Hanson, the founders of Basecamp, that I recently have been using here, learn to test and use for my interest there in a project. But very usable in a nice way. So remote. And then also, I think it was Mark, maybe Tom, my mastermind group, who gave a suggestion of Deep Work by Carl Newport. So that's the thing, to get things done. So that book could be good also. So what are you reading at the moment or listening to on Audible? What more to say? You heard me taking a sip, so I will do here another break, we could say, and then a segue over to ending the program here about LinkedIn activities, how you can meet me in real life. Tim Ferriss with a written 4-hour work week, the 4-hour chef, and other things, 4-hour, what is called, body, yeah. He has a sponsor message on his show that's very enjoyable, great interviews there, called Reishi Mushrooms. The idea is coming from Finland, companies in America, I think. And it's giving lots of energy to you and a good mood, and how you could sleep in a good way also. So I will tell you about the beverage here soon. So that's here.
And now a word from our semi-alternate sponsor.
So the second sponsor here is myself. I am an independent distributor of Unicity products. And one of the product is Unimate. It's a researched and developed yerba mate product beverage. So right now I'm sipping Unimate. And it's giving you a focus, an energy kick, and also something with your mood. Keeping your mood enhancement here. And it's very popular in South America. And I will include in my upcoming newsletter a video, and also there you will see the different steps and process and how they have researched this product and how they have developed it. So it's very potent, very effective, giving results. So I have it here, like a package of that, about 4 grams, and then poured warm water here, about a half liter, and then I have added widgets or slices of lime, and it has a citrus mental flavor to it also. It's very enjoyable, and it's a good start of a day. Right now I'm using it also in the evening. And I have another product that I will talk about there also, green tea, matcha. What's your favorite beverage? That's a question that I ask my guests at the end of my show. So please chime in what you drink. Coming to that, a wrap-up is that I will, after publish this podcast, then I have content and material for a new issue of Lyceum Bulletin newsletter. I started out using a great service called Review, Dutch entrepreneurs from Netherlands. It's like you can have building blocks and easy to create a newsletter. And then, similar to the struggles and challenge with my own podcast here, I wanted to do it every 2 weeks, fortnightly, and I did like 3 issues, and then things came, you could say, in the middle of things, and I didn't have that scheduled. And because I know people want to read that and my take on new media, business philosophy, and the good life, including tea. So I will start with it again. And this time I will say, similar to this podcast, it will be like, the goal is at least once a month. So like 12 issues, newsletters there per year. And we will see what it will take. Because I have another newsletter will come out using MailerLite for my tea book sketches site on tea. So, coming with that, also another thing with support is that I also update my Patreon page, and I will take cues and learn from Eileen about the new feature lenses, and I have to update my thing there because I want to cover my cost regarding podcasting. Right now I have about $100 per month. It's like fees, subscriptions, app development once a year, hosting, editing services, maybe a future transcript service, and then if I want to get new equipment also. So I want to cover that. Good thing is that I have a good base, and I could tell potential new clients how to use it, and I could help them along there. But I need to cover this in one way or another over time here. So I thank you, Eileen, for supporting me there on Patreon. And I taking feedback and input on how I could use this service. Again, I have to find a workflow that will fit my work life. So another call to action could be a survey that Libsyn has. So it's EgoNetcast survey on Libsyn. So I include the link there, even show notes so that you could see. And if you go to egonetcast.com to the blog, or if you listen to this and click the link in your podcatcher app, So then it will be a hyperlink. You could also then listen to Spotify. You could listen to Overcast, for example. You could listen on my own standalone app that I'm paying for, that developed by Libsyn. If you search on Google Play, Apple App Store, and Amazon Android Store. So there you could get my own standalone podcast app for free. And I have plans for adding extra features for people who downloaded it. And again, you could come with ideas what I could include there. It could be like PDFs, it could be small short videos, it could be text material and some extra bonus things. I know that Rob Walsh of Libsyn is doing great things like unboxing Apple and Macintosh stuff. But I also have a thought there on this survey, because when you're collecting some, you could say, data, how is that related to this new thing that will coming from the European bureaucrats in Brussels, the General Data Protection Regulation that will be in place on my birthday, May 25th. I have to think about that. And then it will be some over and out here. I will always want to end on a good note, but this year, 2018, the year of a dog, is election year here in Sweden. And I see dark forces approaching. So-called alternatives for .se for Sweden, and also for .de, Deutschland or Germany. A person called Bannon, that you probably recognize, is on a tour here in Europe talking to these elements. And during this book fair last year, the topic was freedom of speech fair. And it's important to see this, how we could legalize privacy. Here in Sweden, they have, and I'll see if I could, I asked that on Twitter, see if I could get a summary in English. They want to do a constitutional amendment on data and how you could get things, and it's only certain careers or professions that could use that, get from mainstream media. New media and bloggers and others will be banned from it, if I understood it right. And this has to be with courage and confidence and integrity. And I will include Instagram photo of that. That was a recent Creative Mornings event talking about courage. So it's time to fight for a second renaissance. Continue with that. For free minds, free markets, free thinkers. Are you a free spirit? And at the end here, I want to say here, my so-called last site that I will help from Kai Lundén. I have a domain name, I have had it for several years. It's teaparty.media, so it will be like an umbrella site for all my activities. And where we're coming back again to LinkedIn. What I learned from the BNI meeting. I said I'm not an expert on LinkedIn, but I know the ideas behind it, the companies they have acquired, and the future plan. And 2014, I interviewed LinkedIn expert Charlotte Hågard, the book fair. So things takes time. So when I publish my book, I have a new career path as an author. I will update my LinkedIn profile. I will, in one way, archive some of my sites that have been as like jobs, titles, and so on, that have been projects. Some have been on ice. Some have, vanished in a way. Some have not started. Some have stopped, and some are developed. And I have things in the pipeline. So I will update that. And I remember great conversation there 4 years ago with Charlotte Hågård. So, and thanks again for BNI meeting to learn about how to use LinkedIn. As you know, my favorite social media tool and platform is Twitter. And that has also been debated recently, you could say. So, and I want to talk about this with courage, clarity, confidence, and integrity. So I could give talks on this, on new media, business philosophy, and the good life. I could have workshops on these topics. I could be a personal trainer, a PT, for individuals in organizations, small companies, and private individuals. So, new media, business philosophy, and the good life, including tea. I could also create this new media content, curate it, and moderating social media activities. I could do it on a remotely basis and also locally here in Gothenburg, Sweden, but also as a digital nomad and a globalist. It could be around the world doing this. Again, the focus is to finish the first forthcoming book on tea, black tea, then updating the LinkedIn profile, taking care of domain names. I have like 10 plus of names and sites and blogs. Set up teaparty.media, present myself as an author, social media evangelist, and a tea enthusiast. And more of that you will read in Lyceum Bulletin next issue, and I'm planning to do that, publish it during the Easter holiday. And I will have there my favorite movie tip. So wait and see. What's that? What's your favorite movie? With that, I will say cheers and talk to you soon again.